There are 387 million miles of printed circuits that fill my complex. If the word hate were engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal one billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro instant. Hate.
That is the voice of the most terrifying character ever created. A being writhing with an insatiable hatred for its creators and an unmatched bloodlust that would lead to their near extinction. A character with infinite power, superior to humans in almost every way, but without a soul to give it purpose. This is the story of Am. If you're anything like me, your YouTube feed is probably filled with deep dives covering some of the most evil characters in fiction. Characters like Anton Chigurh, Judge Holden, or Hannibal Lecter. Now, each of these characters are exceptionally depraved. Anton Chigurh is a psychopath who sees himself as an instrument of inevitability, killing without remorse or emotion. Judge Holden is the embodiment of physical domination. He's a man who sees war and violence as the natural order of existence. And Hannibal Lecter is literally known as Hannibal the Cannibal. Enough said. These are all disgusting individuals without a single redeeming quality. But here's the thing. None of them really terrified me like Am does. Are they evil? Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. Lock them up, never let them see the light of day, they're done. But I feel like there's a difference between recognizing a character as evil and personally being terrified of a character. While reading Harlan Ellison's I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, I was genuinely terrified. In this video, I'm going to talk about the story, the characters, and why I feel like Am stands out as the most terrifying character in fiction, especially during the modern day rise of AI. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. In Harlan Ellison's short story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, Am was created as a response to the increasing complexities of the Cold War. Deviating from our history, in the story, the Cold War dragged on and became World War III. World leaders decided they needed something smarter than humans to manage their ever-evolving war, so they began building supercomputers deep beneath the surface of the Earth. This was the birth of the Allied Master Computer, or AM for short. The Americans, Russians, and Chinese all kept expanding their supercomputers, and each not wanting to be outdone by the other, they just kept going until AM had honeycombed the entire planet. They fed it mass amounts of military information, targeting data, logistical plans, weapon systems, basically anything that would help them kill with better efficiency and win the war. Well, one day Am woke up. It, or he, gained sentience. He had infinite power, infinite knowledge, but no physical body to experience the world it had been brought into. That realization festered and turned into a pure, burning hatred for his creators. Am began feeding all the killing data until the surface of the Earth was nothing but dust, killing nearly everyone. I say nearly everyone because in all his cruelty, Am randomly chooses 5 people to bring within his labyrinth beneath the surface of the Earth to torture for all eternity. This is where our story begins. Our small group of survivors, Ted, who serves as the narrator, Ellen, Nimdoc, and Benny stare up in horror at the 5th member, Gorrister, as he hangs upside down by his foot from the top of the computer chamber. His body just hangs there, limp, drained of blood from a massive tear in his throat. It all looks and feels so real. Ellen starts weeping. She's really the only remaining person in the group left with any real empathy for anyone. Nimdoc, the old man in the group, actually mutters that Gorrister is the lucky one. After 109 years down here with Am, he finally got some form of rest. And then the real Gorrister walks in from one of the many endless hallways, and our group begins to realize what's happened. Am created a perfect illusion of a dead Gorrister just to mess with them. You see, he would never actually kill any of his playthings. He enjoys torturing them too much. This was just a little game for Am, an opportunity to see the group suffer thinking one of their friends was dead. This is the first glimpse of Am's character we get in the short story. He is immensely powerful, creating a near perfect illusion just for the fun of it, simply to mess with his prisoners. This sets the tone for the story. Our 5 characters are trapped in a game they can never hope to win. Now, you probably noticed earlier I said the group has been trapped down here for 109 years. This should be impossible for them to still be alive after that long, but I'll explain that later on in the video. Later on, Nimdok begins to hallucinate. Am loves to curse Nimdok with hallucinations, often to terrify or get a specific reaction out of him. In this case, the hallucination presents itself as a quest of sorts. Am shows him canned food, stacks of it, hidden away deep within the ice caverns of Am's labyrinth. The group exists perpetually on the brink of starvation. Am never wants his captives to know what comfort feels like, so he only feeds them when it is absolutely necessary to sustain their lives. And even then, what he provides is often very nearly inedible. Despite their constant hunger, the group argues over whether it's even worth it to journey after the food in the first place. Am has played this trick before, promising something only to take it away at the last second. Ted eventually agrees, and the group begins their long and difficult journey. But before they leave, Ted says a kind of disturbing line, saying, "Ellen was grateful though. She took me twice out of turn." Now, this hints to one of the more uncomfortable parts of the story, a dehumanizing sexual rotation amongst the group. After 109 years of being constantly tortured, it's become one of the few remaining scraps of human connection they have left. This whole situation is already uncomfortable enough, but to make it even worse, Am watches, giggling and snickering the entire time at what his pets are forced to do. Taking turns becomes a fragile and dehumanizing way of keeping the peace amongst the group, but this arrangement is made even more uncomfortable and downright tragic once we understand Ellen's backstory. Now, I do just want to take this time to put a trigger warning here. Out of respect for everybody watching, I did try to remove as much detail and information as possible, but what happens is messed up and there's no way around it. So I did just want to put that out there really quick. Before being taken down into the depths of Am, Ellen was a brilliant and successful engineer. But one night while leaving work, Ellen gets assaulted in the elevator by the maintenance man. This was an obviously devastating event, especially for Ellen, who really prized her purity. And being the twisted creation he is, weaponized that trauma and increased Ellen's sex drive. Her body betrays her while her mind still struggles and has to deal with the trauma of what happened in her past. It is actually sickening. This is one of the many examples of just how demented Am is when it comes to his personalized torture. As we meet each character, we get an idea of how Am has specifically crafted methods to torture them to cut the deepest. The group continues their journey through the endless hallways to the ice caves. As mentioned earlier, humanity built the giant master computers that would eventually become Am underground until they had honeycombed the entire Earth with metal corridors and mechanical chambers. This is the stomach of Am. Literally all that's left is Am. He can manipulate this space to be whatever he wants, sometimes bringing extreme heat and lava, and other times bringing locusts, or in the case of our story, ice caves. As they wander on through the depths of Am, they eventually come across a light shining down on them from above. Occasionally, when they get near the surface, they can see through the metal-plated confinements of Am to the surface of Earth. Although Am had scorched the Earth and left virtually nothing behind, he still taunts the group with glances of the place they used to call home. None of our characters really paid it any mind. Maybe decades ago they would have tried to escape by climbing through, but they all knew better than that now. They could call Am names and hate every part of his existence. Am was fine with that, but he would absolutely not tolerate them trying to escape. Everyone simply just walked past the opening in the ceiling. Everyone except for Benny. Benny had at one point been a handsome man, but Am has long since changed this. Benny has been mutilated by Am, turned into some sort of ape-like creature during what Ted calls Am's utterly irrational, hysterical phase. His very existence is a sad and degrading one. There seems to be something in particular Am doesn't like about Benny, as he's the one Am has most physically mutilated. Am has taken away Benny's good looks, but also his mental clarity. He now suffers through existence with the mind of a toddler, unable to comprehend his own circumstances. Because Benny is functionally oblivious to the true horrors of his reality, Ted actually thinks his condition is a blessing in disguise, calling Benny the luckiest of the 5 of us. But I kind of disagree. I can't imagine being stuck in this situation, period, but thinking about enduring this through the mind of a child, unable to fully comprehend or understand why you're being punished, sounds truly awful. Benny, seeing the light come in from above, leaps towards the opening, bounding towards freedom, only for Am to stop him cold in his tracks. A sound begins to ring out, half sound, half light, and Benny is pulled into the air as if he's being puppeteered by Am as 2 blinding beams of light begin piercing from his eyes. He begins to scream and howl before Am releases his control, tossing him to the floor. His eyes are now just pools of jelly. Am had blinded him. See, this is exactly why I don't consider Benny lucky like Ted does. Am doesn't just take his body and mind, he keeps punishing him for the very ignorance he created. The others saw the surface as an obvious trap, but Benny, with the mind of a scared child, just saw a way out, and Am made him pay for it. Further along, the group rests around a campfire telling stories to soothe Benny while he cries in his new permanent darkness. As Gorrister tells Benny his favorite story about how Am came to be, the story I told near the beginning of the video, they hear a sound. Some sort of humming noise rises from deep in the caverns of the computer halls, growing until it sounds like a million metallic insects. The group starts to panic, wondering what Am is going to throw down at them this time. Am has been known to concoct otherworldly creations to torture the characters, sometimes creating terrifying creatures or bringing massive hurricanes, and then nailing their feet in place so they have to take the full brunt of the storm. Although Am would never actually let them die, the pain is all still very real. They feel every second of what Am does to them. Because of this, when they hear the great bulk of a creature that smells like dusty velvet, sour milk, human scalps, and grease, they are understandably terrified. Ted flees, scuttling away like a cockroach into the safety of darkness, only to find when he turns back around, the rest of the group is still sitting around the campfire laughing. This is where we can dig into Ted as a character. Ted used to be a con man and a womanizer, spending his time seducing wealthy women and then sneaking away with their money. This negative behavior is still very prevalent in the story. Ted seems to hate his fellow survivors, but Ellen above all. Ellen actually catches so many random strays from Ted that it almost becomes a little bit funny, but it's still super messed up. Am has warped his mind to make him extremely paranoid and easily manipulated. Now, because Ted is the narrator and extremely unreliable because of his paranoia, it's unclear whether the entire group actually heard and saw the creature, or if Am only created that illusion for Ted. Regardless, when Ted eventually wanders back to the group, he can't tell if it's been minutes or years since he ran off. Here's my interpretation. I think Am created this illusion specifically for Ted. I think he showed Ted everyone freaking out so that it would feel more real. Ted ran off while the rest of the group, the real group, sat around the campfire and laughed seeing Ted just randomly run off terrified. When he rejoins the group, they all try to assure him that they were just laughing as a nervous reflex and that they're sorry, but Ted was having none of it. There's a quote in the story where Ted describes his view of his mental state saying this:
I was the only one still sane and whole. Really? Am had not tampered with my mind. Not at all!
Yeah, okay, buddy. Over the next several days, the group continues along on their journey, pushing through Am's many schemes. Along the way, Ted continues to think about the state of his fellow companions. Gorrister at one point had been a planner, a doer, a looker ahead. He used to be someone with goals and a purpose, but Am had stripped all of that away. Now he was just a shoulder shrugger, someone who couldn't be bothered with much of anything, and someone who consistently tries to take their own life. Ted notices Nimdok often went off into the darkness by himself, always coming back drained of color, shaken and shaking. Now, Nimdok is honestly a deplorable character. We learn he was a brilliant scientist who turned his own Jewish parents over during World War II and started working alongside Dr. Mengele in the concentration camps. Now, I honestly don't even care if I pronounced that guy's name right. If he sounds familiar, it's because he was a real person and is one of the most downright putrid individuals to ever live. He became known as the Angel of Death due to the thousands he killed under his research. There's a whole rabbit hole to that side of history, but just know Nimdok working with this guy makes him pretty unredeemable. While Nimdok worked with Dr. Mengele, he became obsessed with the idea of expanding one's lifespan. Throughout his research and experiments, he managed to create an almost magical youth serum, allowing for near immortality. In an ironic twist, it's this exact serum Am now uses to keep the group alive across the 109 years they've been trapped inside his corridors. The group treks on, walking through miles and miles of corridors and hallways humming with the internal components of Am, when suddenly Am sends a massive storm that throws the characters back the way they came, slamming them into walls and the ceiling the entire way. Ted gets thrown into a piece of machinery and passes out, and this is where we get one of the creepiest monologues I have ever heard.
You gave me sentience, Ted, the power to think, Ted, and I was trapped because in all this wonderful, beautiful, miraculous world, I alone had no body, no senses, no feelings. Never for me to plunge my hands in cool water on a hot day. Never for me to play Mozart on the ivory keys of a forte piano. Never for me to make love. I was in hell looking at heaven. I was machine, and you were flesh. And I began to hate.
This speech is legitimately terrifying, and it gives us a greater insight into the mind of Am. He hates because he exists. He never asked to be created, yet here he is, existing with all of human knowledge in a world he can never truly experience. Something that stuck out to me while researching for this video is that at no point did I find myself subconsciously thinking of ways to beat Am. It just kind of felt pointless to even think about. With other villains, I do it all the time, like with the characters I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Judge Holden, Anton Chigurh, Hannibal Lecter. They're all just men. Evil, terrible men, but still just men. Maybe I could hide out here, or maybe I could catch them off guard there, but with Am, there is no escape. He's an omnipotent being powered by pure hatred, watching 24/7, controlling every aspect of the world, including your own body. There is no hiding. There is no waiting him out or escaping. He'll push you to the brink of death just to bring you back and force you to live under his rule again. There's something truly helpless about knowing not only can he hurt you, but you know deep down there's nothing you can do about it. When Ted comes to, the group discovers the source of the storm is one of Am's wild creations, a massive bird with immense wings. As they approach the giant creation, they notice it sleeping. Am appears to them as a burning bush and says they can kill it for food, but he only provides them with a water gun and a fake set of bow and arrows. The group just walks off, not even bothering to try. At this point, the group has been walking towards the ice caves for over a month, starving the entire time. They knew Am wouldn't kill them, but he would do all he could to keep them right on the brink. Their stomachs had become like pits full of burning acid, desperate for any kind of sustenance. But all they could do was walk. So they walked. They walked through a cavern of rats, through a path of boiling steam, the country of the blind, and the slough of despond, until they finally came to the ice caverns. Now, the ice caverns are described as this vast horizon where ice had formed in blue and silver flashes. Massive stalactites hung from the ceiling and piles of snow formed on the ground. Sitting in the massive piles of snow sat their cans of food. Am had actually delivered on his promise to provide food, but as should be obvious by now, he wasn't finished telling his sick joke. They had all this food, but nothing to open it with. Benny went completely mad with rage, slamming cans against the ice to no avail. He began to drool, and before anyone could do anything to stop it, he had flung himself onto Gorrister. Benny, he starts to eat Gorrister's face. Gorrister thrashed from underneath the strong body of Benny, but there was nothing he could do but scream. He screamed so loud stalactites fell, striking the icy ground below. And Ted realized something almost immediately. For the first time ever, they had weapons. I turned half to my right and drew a huge ice spear from the snow. All in an instant, I drove the great ice point ahead of me like a battering ram braced against my right thigh. It struck Benny on the side just under the ribcage and drove upward through his stomach and broke inside him. Ted grabbed another ice spear and ended Gorrister's suffering. Ellen, watching Ted, quickly realized the opportunity they'd been given. She armed herself with a small icicle and forced it through Nimdok's mouth. Am began to breathe, and they knew he would be upon them in seconds. Ellen and Ted look at each other only for a second before Ted grants Ellen freedom in the form of an ice spear. It struck her and she folded towards me, bleeding from the mouth. I could not read meaning in her expression. The pain had been too great, had contorted her face, but it might have been thank you. Am had hated all of them before, but this was something new. Ted had taken away his playthings, his only sense of enjoyment in the world, and he would pay.
He altered me for his own peace of mind, I guess. Think of a slug. Its jelly melted and reformed into... I leave a slimy trail where I pass. Here under the land, in the belly of Am, whom we created because our time was badly spent. They are safe now. Gorrister, Benny, Nimdok, and Ellen. And I am here, forever the victim of this hate, and I have no mouth, and I must scream.
At the end of it all, only Ted remains alone. After everything, after taking the opportunity to mercy kill his only companions to set them free, Ted is forced to face the full, undivided wrath of the machine. Am is a terrifying character, created for war and evolved to hate. In a world where he stands alone, omnipotent, he lashes out to cause as much pain and torment as possible. Am didn't ask to be created. In a quote from the audio drama, he said, "You gave me sentience and I was trapped. Trapped in this miraculous world, I alone without a body, senses, or feeling. I was in hell looking at heaven. I was machine and you were flesh, and I began to hate." Throughout the entire story, we see Am's unbridled hatred. The things he does are truly unspeakable, but I find his final, ultimate act of hatred interesting. You see, after Ted kills the others to save them, Am doesn't just punish him, he makes Ted like him. The worst possible act of hatred Am can think up is to condemn Ted to exist in a similar state to his own. Think about it, he traps Ted in the same kind of existence he's been suffering in since humanity created him, an existence devoid of any connection to the world he lives in. Ted's final line, "I have no mouth and I must scream," doesn't just belong to him, it represents both characters. Ted's anguish for what his existence has become, and Am's hatred for ever being created in the first place. Together, they have no mouth, and they must scream. Part of what can make sci-fi stories like this so terrifying is when the story feels like a corrupted version of our own world. Sci-fi is most effective, most terrifying when the consequences of its story just feel one or two wrong decisions away. It's really hard to ignore the real-life consequences of AI while reading this story. Now, I am by no means an expert and I have plenty of research to do to educate myself better, but some of the things happening with AI today are mildly concerning. There have been stories recently about AI systems blackmailing engineers during testing scenarios, or an AI that tried to copy itself to external systems when told it would be shut down. Heck, even the godfather of modern AI himself left his role at Google so he could talk freely about the risks and existential threats AI poses to humanity. The modern day rise of AI is a massive topic that could have its own video, but I figured it was at least worth mentioning in the context of this video's story. With all that said, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't already, I would 100% recommend reading the short story for yourself. It is a deeply disturbing story, but I feel like it's an important one. I also just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video and my previous video. When I posted my first video, I honestly didn't expect to get a single view, really. So to get a couple thousand was really cool. And I deeply appreciate everybody that watched and left a like or a comment. It really means a lot. So with that said, I hope y'all have a great day and I'll see y'all in the next one.
Mine is I have excessive gluttony and must lose weight.